We've all been there. Something you didn't plan for. It's your health, your spouse, your job, something that now stands in the way. As Mike Tyson reminds us, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. Anyone can make a plan, but very few can execute when the pressure's on. Well, imagine having a way to handle things that get in the way, even turn the obstacle into an opportunity. Welcome to A Call to Rise. I'm your host, Joel Landy, founder, entrepreneur, former naval officer, and this is where we help you build resilience, which is the ability to manage high levels of challenge and disruption while maintaining high levels of effectiveness and well-being. Because goals without setbacks are uncommon and big plans without resilience are just not happening. So if your job or life demands staying and playing at a high level, you're exactly where you need to be. So let's jump in. Battle tested. A man at peace with his past. The most dangerous lie a man will tell himself is that his past has no power over him. And of course, that's not true unless that man has the courage and the confidence to go back and make sense of his past, which is about what today's conversation is about. So, recently I watched a Navy SEAL on a video saying that the first war any SEAL must face is a war with himself. And of course, that war is the war over his fears and doubts that he's going to confront while in BUDS training. And I completely agree with that. But I go a step further, and I'd say the most critical war any man is going to have to face is the war over his past. And it's a war that he's got to win. Now, some of us have had some pretty idyllic pasts, but most of us haven't. And I'm talking to the people that haven't, okay? And so you're probably thinking, okay, what does this look like? Where are we going with this? But I'm talking about I'm not talking about looking back at your past and seeing what broke, but actually looking back at the difficulty and seeing how it's forged you. And this is a change of perspective that's very critical, that has to be intentional, because when it doesn't happen, men go off the rails and they never become the men that they're supposed to be, And I think, first of all, they just get weird. I remember being in the airport last month. I was looking at this guy with his pants sagging, and I'm like, dude, pull your pants up. And then next step is you got to make peace with your past. All right. Men do weird stuff when they're not at peace, and if they're not getting weird, they just get passive, And look, if you're living in your mother's basement and you've had a failure to launch, that, hey, that's not an insult, but you've got to make peace with your past. And you got to begin to understand the stories and the events that have shaped you, that have made you really unattractive to other women. And that's not insulting. That's the truth that's going to set you free. But there's a reason why you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And on the other spectrum of what happens to men when they don't get at peace with their past is they become really aggressive, but they become aggressive in inappropriate ways at inappropriate times. I want to remind some of you guys that pride yourself with being aggressive. If you look to the wild, gorillas, for instance, the alpha males are the ones that are quieting the storm. So I just want you to wrap your mind around that. But ultimately, here's how I know someone has not really have been battle tested, how they haven't faced their past, is when you start asking questions below the surface, their eyes shift down, they change the subject, or they feel uncomfortable and they want to leave the room. And that's how you know a person's not at peace with their past. And that's what today's about. Today's the opportunity. It's the invitation. It's a road less traveled to become battle tested, right? It's to make peace with your past, because there are lessons that need to be learned that you need to bring forward to round out who you really are. And look, I get it. By nature, the science tells us we avoid pain, we seek pleasure, and I understand that, right? But in 1994, I got the call, and I was in the process of almost getting divorced to my wife, Julie. I was invited to a Christian study, and I was asked at one point in time to do an exhaustive review on my life, on my journey. And this wasn't a strengths-based, journey. They wanted me to look at the impact that my decisions had on myself and more critically on other people. And let me tell you, it was jarring. But I'm here to tell you, it was the most powerful thing I've ever done. It completely changed the foundation of my life. And I felt like I faced a very critical battle at age 30, and I won that battle. And I'd become battle tested. And that's really what this is about. Battle tested is this transformative event that happens if you mount the courage to face yourself, right, and measure the weight of your actions and decisions. But here's what's critical. It's taking responsibility and shifting the perspective. And when that happens, the door cracks open. And if you're willing enough to drop your ego, you go on the hero's journey. And this is the mythology of us. But, the hero's journey is an opportunity that every man gets to go to face his demons or to face his Goliath. But once on the other side, that person, if they fight and they're successful, they have a story, they have a drive, they have a purpose, and ultimately it's to benefit others. But what happens is there's a rebirth. And there's a reason why movies like Lord of the Rings are so wildly powerful. It's this actual script that is true about humanity. I had a friend once who became a client, went to my website. I talk about battle-tested being part of the rebirth that happens when a man is willing to do this experience, which I'm sharing with you today. And he's a former F-16 fighter pilot. He read it, and he looked at me. He went, yeah, battle-tested. And, of course, he was comparing the idea of him and I being in actual combat. He saw combat. My role was a non-combatant role. I didn't have the opportunity to see combat. But the thing that I didn't do to protect his dignity is I didn't remind him that the reason why he hired me was because he didn't face his battle of the past. And that's why he was with me. That's why he was under my leadership getting coached. Is there was a story of his past that he refused to confront. And, until you do that, you limp, you bleed. And, your past becomes a ball and chain. And that's where that phrase comes from, right? But when it turns, it becomes something that you're eager to share. And that's part of the rebirth experience. Robert Bly, famous psychologist and author, said, if you show me a man's wound, I will show you his contribution to society. I will show you his genius. So here's another crazy thing about being willing to do this, is you just might well discover your genius and part of your calling if you're willing to look back and make sense of your past. And every person has an opportunity to do this. Not many people rise to it. So a couple quick ideas if you've ever been battle tested. Number one, confident transparency. Are you able to speak courageously about the difficult parts of your past? Ideas and events that have shaped you, or do you feel kind of sheepish? There's no power in that story. It needs to be power in that story. Number two, purposeful perspective. Can you actually articulate the lessons learned when you went through a really difficult situation? Breaking up with a girl, being shamed, being betrayed, a moment of disloyalty. But have you been able to articulate the reasons why in a way where you sound like the hero and not the victim? The next one is empathetic leadership. Have you taken the stories that you've learned about your most difficult moments and have been able to create a narrative that actually helps people go through difficult things? Because look, the circumstances may change, but getting past difficulty, there's a template to it. And once you do it and understand it, you can help other people do the same thing. And so a battle-tested man is the person that goes back into the wreckage and finds the lesson. And this is the opportunity in this call. So all you need to do is answer one question. Have you walked through your toughest moments? And have you emerged as a man defined not by the damage, not by the bad stuff, but by the lessons learned? And are you bringing that story forward in a way where it's bringing a solution to the lives of other people? I could have easily bowed out in 1994. At age 30, as a man, I could have went in a different direction. I was a very successful naval officer. I was failing in my personal life. And God had a plan for me at that point in time to actually reshape the very foundation of my life. So here's a closing thought. We all have pain. Don't waste your pain. Well, how do you not waste your pain? Well, you got to evaluate it, and you got to make good use of it, right? Your stories should not make you limp. They should be badges and medals of honor, because when you're battle tested, you speak as a person who stayed and won a fight. You feel victorious. And once on the other side, you get the privilege of helping others get to their other side of the battle. And that's how you know that you've been battle tested. You've gone through really difficult things, and you can help others do the same. So you're ready to take a risk today. Reach out and start a conversation that turns some of your toughest memories into badges of honor. Drop a comment. I know this is an unusual talk. A lot of people will blow this off, but some people will rise. They'll rise to the challenge, and the trajectory of their lives will change. And so I'm inviting you into the conversation. Drop a comment, reach out, push back. If you heard something that doesn't make any sense or you think is contrary to sound reasoning or logic, I want to know what you think. But today is about you. Today is about you in the idea that you can make sense and come to peace with your past, because it is a battle that every man has got to face. And when they do victoriously, they make a contribution to the lives of other people. And it is heroic, and we all get a chance to be heroic in our lifetime. So there you have it. Thanks for joining. Looking forward to hearing your comments. If today's conversation challenged you, it's a real signal you need to do the work. It's no longer an option for you. So don't push that feeling away. It's reminding you of the cost of playing small. Success is easy when things go well, but resilience, that's cultivated when things go sideways. Make sure you subscribe, and if this episode brought you value, pass it on. It's how we grow the tribe. We'll be back, hopefully next week. Until then, I'll see you next time. Here is your call to rise. Rise up so that others can rise.